So last year, when we had the inaugural summit, it was very much sort of high-level people, former political top leaders, and we thought this year what we really also wanted in the fight for democracy was that we wanted the democracy activists, we wanted the voices when we talk about an alliance of democracies from all over the world, not just sort of the Western world. And that's really part of what we've been trying to do here with these, what we're going to try to do with these sessions. And in order to do that, we need really great partners. We have that both with the International Republican Institute, with the National Democratic Institute, with the European Endowment for Democracy and the Bush Center that have helped us in make this happen. So in our sort of first democracy couch session, I would like to invite Dan Twining, the president of the International Republic Institute, to come up here. You'll get the chair, not the couch, and we'll have Juela Hamati, who is the president of the European Democracy Youth Network. So with you can join me up here in the couch, and Diana Moukalled, who is from Tunisia, journalist and writer. And if you join Juela here, and then I think we will have Dan mic'd up. The setup we had made was really to sort of have three basic questions frame the discussion on why you are fighting for democracy, what you see as the big issue for democracy in your own country and then globally. And I am just fascinating to hear that. So I'll leave it to the three of you.
Okay. Thank you, Jonas. We're delighted to be here with our friends, the Alliance for Democracy. IRI works around the world in and around 90 countries supporting democracy. And the way we do that is by working with incredible people like the two you're about to hear from. I'm not going to do extensive introductions because I think part of the point of the Democracy Couch is for you to tell us your story of how you got engaged in the fight for freedom and dignity in your countries. So, Diana Moukalled, let me start with you. Why do you fight for democracy?
Well, let me start that I started working as a journalist in 1991. It was the end of civil war in Lebanon. And the way it ended is having the Syrian regime controlling Lebanon and the Iranians. I'm saying that because since then, the media has been controlled by regional powers. So my motto since then till the late 2015 was to pick up stories that I can tackle professionally. This motto led me to cover stories related to women, minorities, democracy in the region. I have covered Iraq war, Afghanistan, but I never choose a topic where I can be a propaganda mouthpiece to any regime or any parties. In 2011, I was one of those who were affected by the Arab Spring. I thought, well, it's about time to have more space to speak up, to have open and free media. Unfortunately, the backlash was severe. And I'm sure you're aware that the authoritarian regime and radical groups have again gained ground and the ceilings went lower and lower. So in 2016, it was me and a group of other journalists who decided it's about time. We need independent voices. Media is crucial for democratic system and democratic society. So instead of doing it on social media or in our small groups, we should have our own platform. So we created Daraj.com. It's a media platform based in Lebanon, but it's targeting Arab region. So we have contributors from Syria, Egypt, those who cannot put stories in conventional media and mainstream media are using our platform to say the stories that they cannot tell in other platforms. So basically, we are trying to create space for people like me, for many other people who have no space in conventional media in the Arab world.
And do you feel like you're making progress?
Yes, we are making progress in terms of stories, in terms of followers, in terms of impact. Some of our stories, and I can tell you, we were banned in one of the countries, blocked our website, but fortunately we got released out of that blockage. We managed to cover corruption and cover torture in certain areas that are being investigated. Our editor-in-chief have been arrested for a few hours. Luckily, he got released. So we are creating a buzz. Yes, you cannot compare us to big media giants. We are still a small platform, but we are creating a space that is so much needed in the Arab world.
So when there are democratic deficits, there are often so many causes: authoritarian political control, media restrictions, civil society suppression. So this is kind of a hard question. But what do you think is the biggest challenge to democracy in your country, perhaps even in the wider region?
Well, the ones you know, I mean, it could be physical, from assassination, from insult, from imprisonment, persecution, and it is being implemented. The whole world was following the case of the slain journalist, Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. We have plenty of Jamal Khashoggi. It's true that we should have followed that story. And the irony is, Jamal Khashoggi's case is our story. He's an Arab journalist. He wrote in an Arabic newspaper that did not have the courage to write about him. The story of Jamal Khashoggi has turned into the story of Washington Post, whereas the Arab media failed Jamal Khashoggi, as the Arab media have failed other journalists and freedom fighters in this region. So the dangers are physical, and today they are digital. We are facing a growing danger from the digital front, whether by blocking or by hacking. I mean, you're aware of these dangers.
And this is, so I wanted to seg to kind of the broader context, because this is a similar challenge globally. I mean, there's a Lebanon story, there's a regional story, and then there's a global story, which is that we are all struggling with this new information and digital space. What advice would you have based on your experience for other countries?
Well,
activists?
I think globally the problem is the lack of impunity. Today, what happened with Jamal Khashoggi's case is that after his assassination, President Trump said it out loud, well, I will not sacrifice the billions I'm getting from Saudi Arabia for the sake of one journalist. Today, I still cannot comprehend, it's beyond my comprehension, how is a war criminal like Bashar al-Assad is still running Syria. So this is, people are not they are not taking to account to courts, and there is lack of accountability. So if world power are not putting these people into where they belong and leaving the space open for war criminals, how can we function in a society like this? So impunity is something that is beyond my comprehension. One more thing, if you allow me, is the business perspective of it. Today, truth has turned into a commodity. I understand that if you want to visit Washington Post, New York Times, any major news outlet, you have to have a paywall. So, which is understandable because journalism is costly and journalists should be paid for their work. But on the other hand, propaganda is free, fake news is free, and it's powering the whole sphere. And actually, they are paying for consumers to consume them, whereas truth has become more and more expensive. And with the region where I live, in the Arab world, people cannot afford to pay for outlets to read the story. And if they pay for one, they will not pay for more. But they have a free access to propaganda and fake news. To me, this is a major challenge that hasn't been addressed properly.
Thank you. And that helps, I think, connect for all of us why we should care, because, of course, the problems in Lebanon aren't simply the problems of Lebanon, and these issues impact us all very directly. Okay, we'll come back. Juela Hamati, why do you fight for democracy? And we'd like to hear more of your origin story, including your youth leadership, please.
Okay, first of all, I would like to say that sitting next to Diana and listening to her story makes me feel like I haven't done enough to promote democracy. But I will share my story. So I am actively involved in national and international youth politics since I was 17. And since December last year, I lead European Democracy Youth Network, which is a youth organization that brings together people from different backgrounds, from different countries, with the main purpose of promoting democracy in the countries where we come from. And why we do that is because we don't want that other people shape our future for us. And I also, in my daily work, try to promote as many young people as possible into politics, because I think that if we want to have more democracy, first of all, we need to have more youth participation.
Thank you. Can you say more about EDYN, the youth network, and how it actually operates and the impact it has had? I know it's new.
Yeah, it's new. of course, it has an impact because otherwise I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So EDYN brings together people who are active in civil society, NGOs, and political youth organizations. But despite all the differences that we have, thanks to EDYN, personally, I have realized that it's really easy to discuss and to reach agreements with people who also think differently from you. And it is really important to speak to those who are in front of us, who disagree with us, because if we only talk to those who are by our side, and if we only discuss things with people who think just like us, I don't think we're going to achieve anything. So EDYN has taught me that we need to be as inclusive as possible.
And the challenges to democracy in Albania, we'd like to hear what you think is the greatest challenge in your country, but I suspect it's linked to how your peers see challenges in their countries. What do you think is the greatest?
Yeah, actually, I'm really sorry to say this, but right now the biggest threat to democracy in Albania is a one-party state. Because right now that we're here in the conference, the Socialist Party, which also runs the government in Albania, is campaigning and insisting on going into local elections alone, without any opponent. Even though the local elections were cancelled by the President of the Republic. And the reason why they were cancelled is after all the opposition parties nullified the parliamentary mandates, and they refused to enter the local elections after there were revealed several audio phone calls of Prime Minister, several ministers, and mayors as well, orchestrating vote buying and voters threatening. So after these circumstances, the opposition parties are asking for the resignation of the Prime Minister, and he hasn't done that. And still, even though the elections which are supposed to be held on Sunday will not be democratic nor legal, still he's insisting on holding them. And if that happens, I think it's going to have a very bad impact, especially on the youth, because Albania has already been suffering a lot, not only Albania, but this is a problem that all of the EDYN members have, because we realized this while we were discussing our problems from the countries we come from. So brain drain is one of the main issues that EDYN members have, and also Albania. So I think that if the undemocratic elections will be held in Albania on Sunday, the brain drain and the youth migration will be even higher.
So how does this set of challenges in Albania connect to the wider world? I mean, do you see similar challenges elsewhere, including in terms of youth participation? Why should the world care?
Of course. I mean, what is happening in Albania, it's also because of the lack of the youth participation. And I think that many problems which the world is suffering from right now are linked to the lack of the youth participation. And I'm not just talking about the young people going to the ballot box to vote, but I'm talking about youth participation as a whole. And the youth should react not only about hot topics like, I don't know, unemployment or economy or whatever, but about everything that they are worried or that concerns them. For example, Greta Thunberg, which is a 60-year-old girl, gave us a very good example of what a person can do when he or she fights for what he cares about. And she managed to mobilize millions of people around the globe under one cause. And that could have been any of us. And I mean, because there isn't a fixed list of things that we can react on. So young people need to react on everything that worries them. And let me also maybe give you an opposite example to the first one, Brexit, which is happening only because young people didn't care enough to go and vote and actively participate in what was going on in their country. So instead, they allow the old generations shape their future for them. And that is something that we should not allow to happen again. Young people must act, and because caring about things which go wrong in our countries, it's not enough if we don't act. We must act. And that's why I would like to encourage every young person which is here in this room and who is listening to us, to actively engage in different democratic processes going on in their countries and to change their own future and their country's future.
Jonas, I've got a lot more for our young leaders here, but are we taking audience questions or can I keep going? Okay, great. Okay, I will ask on your behalf. Diana, give us your prognosis for the wider Arab world in terms of this ongoing struggle, which is a feature of human history between tyranny and freedom. We know that people do not want to live under corrupt, oppressive regimes. We also know that many authoritarian systems are very strong and durable. Is the balance changing in Lebanon, in the neighborhood?
Not much, because one of the problems that we are facing is those who are in authority have hijacked even the narrative, because the propaganda is, well, if you want stability, then you have to sacrifice a little bit from your freedoms and democracy. People now have associated democracy with terrorism, with whatever that is good, that is bad for their lives. So people are willing and expressing more and more that they prefer sometimes, and I'm not talking about everybody, but the public opinion, you can sense from social media, from the people we meet, that they don't want to sacrifice the minimum stability they have for the sake of democracy. Whereas this is a wrong approach and a wrong narrative. And that's why we stress we need a better debate, a better media that can raise the issue that no, democracy will lead to stability. It's not the other way around. To me, this is one of the challenges that is affecting today, is controlling the narrative and convincing the people, well, you want a good life, then you have to shut up. This is not the equation.
And we're seeing it, I mean, we saw it in the Arab Spring. We have seen it just in the last few months in Algeria, in Sudan,
exactly.
Largely Arab society. So it's not as if nothing is happening on this front in the Arab world.
The same faces we saw in 2011, we saw in Algeria, and we saw in Sudan. Those peaceful demonstrators who were looking for open space for democracy, and they were severely oppressed, either killed or put in prison, or they are trying to seek asylum in Europe. And who remained in the country? Radical groups, authoritarian regimes, and those who believe in propaganda. So no, we don't want to leave the space for them. We need our countries back. We need our freedoms back, and this is what we're trying.
Well said. Juela, the last session was on authoritarian influence. I would like to ask you, with respect to Albania, the Balkans, there are lots of foreign actors in the Balkans. Russia, China, Turkey, Iran, doing different things, Gulf states. How does this affect the struggle for democracy? Do you see this, or in the youth network with EDYN, do you see this, or do you see it more as an internal challenge for these countries, and these foreign actors are not so decisive?
Yeah, you're right. In the Balkans, there are different influences by Russia, China, or other countries. But Albania, where I come from, is a special case because, I mean, we are really oriented towards the United States. So no other factor could influence on our policies or on our the way we do politics. But you are right, because now I'm not speaking only about Albania, but also about EDYN, which I also represent, and in many countries where our EDYN members come from, there are influences like this, and what we want to do is to show young people, not only our members, but young people from all the countries, that they can refuse, or they can do something to change, or to ignore, or to, in a way, kick out the wrong influences going on in their country. If they think that's not right, they should do something to change that. So not just stand back and watch what's going to happen. So, and that's what our EDYN members try to do. They try to fight all kinds of influences which they think will not bring a positive future for their country.
Okay, my last question, I think, just because we want to stay on schedule for our organizers. Diana, you're welcome to say something about foreign influence in Lebanon, because we know that there is some. But I really want to ask you about the culture of democracy, because once upon a time there was a belief that democracy, that sort of these values were not universal, they were Western. They came out of a unique set of religious, political developments in Europe and the United States. We've seen in the last 30 years the wave of democracy spread across Asia, across Africa, through Latin America, which has an old democratic history, more people live under democracy in Asia today than any other region of the world. So arguably, democracy is more Asian today than it is Western. But I would like to ask you about the Middle East, because of course this is a region where there has been a lag. Why is that? And do you see that changing?
There is a possibility of change. You will not see it soon reflected in the mainstream media. But democracy is a need. It's not just a concept. It's a need. People need to speak freely, to express themselves, and it's a culture as well. So what's happening in the Arab world now, it's a more and more suppression, but it's not working because people are finding their ways to express themselves through social media, through art, through books, through satire, and there's a plenty of them in the Arab space. So I will never say that democracy is on the end, or on the dead side in the Arab world. No, but today it's in a critical position, yes. It's not the concept, it's the way to reflect it.
Do you want to say something on this, on the culture of democracy in Albania and the Balkans?
Actually, while Diana was speaking earlier that they are asked to shut up in order to have a better future, to get what they want, I felt that the same is going on right now in Albania because of the situation, as I explained you. We are asked to rate stability over democracy, and that is something we cannot accept. There can be no stability without democracy. Democracy always should come first.
Okay, please join me in thanking these incredible leaders.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.